And everyone, we have late night radio with your show co-host Max. Dip Catcher is the real host here. He'll be coming on in a minute. I don't. This is just one of those funny stories, or I don't know. I don't know what kind of story it is actually. I just came across on Twitter the last week or two. I've been following. I follow all Dip Catcher's rabbit holes he goes down as far as tracking, this or that transactions or what's going on in the ecosystem. We did a really good stream, the PulseChain War Chest, where we went through a lot of data too the other day. It's super good. If you haven't caught that, just type RHMax PulseChain War Chest, and very interesting stream. This one, again, I just kept seeing Atropa and pDAI come across the feed, and Mr. Nomanai, he's got, I think, just likes to go down and follow these different things going on around the ecosystem, and he's one of the few technical people who can actually make sense of it all. So very cool to be on with him. This should be a fun stream. We'll get into the chat in a minute, but even the chat, lots of people. We're gonna die. I don't give living advice or anything on the channel. However, I feel like this is not the stream that would do that if it were going to happen. I don't think it will be if I were a betting person though, but not living or dying advice on that one. But did you die? Oh, they just keep coming. The puns keep coming. Alan, good to see you, Alan. It's been a while by the way. Did you die? No, I'm not dead. I don't think Richard's dead. Might as well get that one out of the way too. And I think we're all doing good. Godfather J6, what's happening, man? All right, I know we got a lot of the comments too. I'll get to them. Some of them make more sense than others. But without further ado, welcome back to the show. I'm going to go with ninth time. I'm not really sure. Dip Catcher, what's happening?
Hey, what's up, dude?
Hey,
Dip Catcher Radio back again.
Dip Catcher Radio.
I mean, welcome by all YouTube channel RHMax.
Are we? Shout out to Matty Allen, by the way. I picked this background, and then Dip Catcher had the PulseChain version, I guess, and then he switched it to this out of a memento to Matty Allen and all the awesome conferences he puts on. And I'm pretty sure that's where the background came from, like the last conference before maybe 3 conferences ago. I don't remember. He does all the conferences.
I think right around New Year, right?
That sounds right. Oh, it was a January when the last time we saw Richard speak too. Boom. There we go. That's the one. You got it.
Good really stuff, man. Time that we've seen him speak?
January, as far as I know. So correct me if I'm wrong. January is the last time, other than the hostage video, which he sped up to a minute, which was hilarious. Dip Catcher said, here's the extended cut version. It was 1 minute of just a slow-mo version of the 10 seconds Richard put out on PulseChain launch. And then he put the highest of stakes video out, which was an actual 1 minute or so. So there you go. I know it's been a while.
Yeah, I slowed it down because I was like frame by frame looking for any type of remnant of like AI generated or like deep fake style.
Wow. Okay. It's strategic.
So
okay.
The real slowing down.
I liked listening to it at 0.25 speed. I'm glad you did that. It's hard to hear the words, and sometimes he speaks with an accent. I don't know if you ever saw him do that before, so it's good to hear the full Richard on that one.
Hello, everybody.
He literally looked like that. That's a. Oh man. Okay. The puns just keep coming. They keep coming.
That's a great one, actually. Like that is.
So somebody says Max Heart Share win. Nice name, by the way. You got me in there. You got Richard in there. You got everyone. Did I jump on the Atropa DAI bandwagon as soon as Dip Catcher joined Twitter space asking to learn about it? That's a great segue. Take us down this crazy train of I don't know what's going on. I've just come across your tweets and stuff, and you mentioned Atropa, pDAI. I think there's some kind of overlap there, but I really don't know much about it. Start from the beginning, man. What's going on in the ecosystem last couple of weeks with this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's never a dull day in PulseChain, right? I mean, basically, what's kind of been unfolding over the last. I mean, if we look at the chart here, really like the last, I don't know. I mean, pretty much since about June 8th, DAI, like the forked over copy of DAI, basically found a bottom at about 0.0000183. And I mean, very little trading volume, because it's like, these stable coins, the thing that keeps them pegged 1-to-1 are things that exist on Ethereum and external systems. So like, of course, the stable coins copied over, they don't have those mechanisms that, help the price stay at that 1-to-1 ratio. Because like the prices of stable coins stay at 1-to-1, just like any coins, based on supply and demand. And so, the way DAI works, for instance, it's actually a very complicated thing. What I kind of liked about this whole situation is actually having me looking deep into how DAI actually works. And what DAI really is it's a multi-collateral stablecoin, meaning it keeps its peg based on various different levers, such as 1-to-1 redeemability with other stablecoins like USDC, USDT, Paxos USD, and also through some types of Ethereum lending vaults. There's this thing called Oasis where you can go and mint DAI by depositing ETH based on a certain rate. You're effectively borrowing against your ETH to mint the DAI. And so there's a handful of different mechanisms to create DAI, and which is different than USDC. USDC, for instance, that is minted by Circle, who operates it, where they have dollars in the bank or dollar equivalents. They use other instruments that are, dollars and dollar-like assets. And you transfer money into them, and then they mint you USDC. And then if you have USDC, you can send the USDC to them. They burn it, and then they give you back the cash. And so that like 1-to-1 redeemability, that's what underpins USDC, USDT. And so, all these things, they're based on supply and demand, but then it comes down to levers with the supply usually, and like reasons for demand that kind of help keep it at 1-to-1. And a lot of that is arbitrage, because like, someone could sell down the price of USDC for like what was going on during when Circle, the company that operates USDC, was having issues with stablecoin or issues with banking. The price of USDC relative to other stablecoins was going down because there was a risk that something like 12% of their bank reserves were held in a bank that was facing a liquidity crisis. And so in that moment, USDC was backed by something like 88 cents. And so the price reflected it. The price of USDC relative to USDT reflected that. So, and so in that time, people could buy up USDC and then take it in. And, once those issues got resolved, you could go and redeem it. And so that was kind of helping to arbitrage that down. So, stable coins are just like any other coins, right? And so, but when the copies happened, the values of the stable coins went, really low. And really at that time, really the only source of demand for these stable coins was maybe a handful of people who were like, oh, these are going to just moon because like, the price is a small number. It's just going to go up. Like not really, no one's thinking about them. So like, that's actually a fine trade to take, like buying something that no one is thinking about, that everyone thinks is just going to kind of dwindle away. That's like a fine, like totally good, like, high risk, high reward type of thing to do. So that was maybe one source of demand for the forked stablecoins. But the other source was actually to extract value from other corners of DeFi. Because, like the AMM bot, when PulseChain launched, it was actually very sprawling. Like it really captured a lot of value from things beyond the Uniswap V2 pools. So it really was way larger in scope than what I really thought it was going to be. And so, but still, like there are things that it didn't capture immediately. And so, like, say there was some contract somewhere where, that if you had some amount of DAI or USDC, you could go and like withdraw some other asset, and then all that system was just copied over. And so now there's like, way underpriced relative to like the ratio on Ethereum. You could go and buy that DAI from the forked over Uniswap pool, and then go and extract some value. So I think there was like some value extraction going on of people just like finding that mismatch. But then it kind of started. So it found a bottom, but I mean, really since mid-June. So now it's been over 2 months. It's basically been on what now amounts to a 310x run. of course, not many people actually held, not like barely anyone bought in that very lows. Like that's why the price was low, because no one was buying, right? But but from that point, like the price is up substantially, and it really kind of culminated in like a meme around, and kind of like more like a rallying cry of the pegging, or like DAI to $1, and which like which the thing is like if there's enough demand, price, and that is not met with increasing supply, then price can go anywhere. Like it's just a coin. Like it trades on a market takes it where supply and demand take it. So but I don't necessarily, but also like I don't want to say that like it can't, because like truly anything can happen. Like all the craziest things beyond your imagination could ever happen. But the things that I had pointed out that I think make it hard for DAI to actually get there, when I kind of pointed those out, people got really upset with me, because like DAI was running by that point in time, and there's kind of been this whole kind of movement around it of kind of basically like looking in, like it's kind of like what I really appreciate about it is that like I love a good shared delusion. Like that's actually one of the most bullish things about it. Like a bunch of people willing to suspend disbelief just because they want something to happen. Like to me, that can be quite bullish. Like people that are willing to listen to like kind of a half truth, like or like look at something and interpret it in a totally like kind of off the wall way. Like that's actually kind of bullish. But the way I was looking at it was more like, okay, like okay, say it goes up in value, then what happens? And so what that led me to do was because like as the price was running in like the first pump now it's been like a week and a half ago, people were pointing out that a bunch of new DAI was being minted and then being sold, and someone I guess extracted like something like $60,000 or something from the market, because the DAI price was going up, and then they would just suddenly mint it and then sell it. And so someone tagged me on Twitter. They're like, hey, or someone was saying that there was like the insiders were like scam minting like free coins. But then on further inspection, there are actually a handful of different ways that you could go and mint free DAI. So one of them was, and this is what like the primary source of where we were getting free money. They were using a contract that on Ethereum you can deposit ETH and then withdraw DAI against it. And since when PulseChain forked, ETH now becomes Pulse, but the price of ETH is much lower than the price of, or much higher than the price of one Pulse. But from the smart contracts perspective, one Pulse is one ETH, and one wrapped Pulse, which is really, it's the wrapped ETH contract, but on PulseChain, it wraps Pulse, and you can go in and out one-to-one. That is was still applicable. And so what someone was doing is they had built their own system to, buy Pulse and then wrap the Pulse in the copied over wrapped ETH contract, which is different than the wrapped Pulse contract that's used in like PulseX. So they were minting DAI out of thin air, not out of thin air. They were borrowing against this, but the thing that toggles the borrowing rate, it was it's related to some type of oracle, and the oracle was just either not operating on PulseChain or just confused because of that whole supply scaling between PulseChain and Ethereum. So
yeah, because that's how you were able to mint some, right? You were able to get it to mint.
So the way I was doing it was, so here can I share my screen so I can show exactly what I was talking about?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, let me present, share. We're gonna pull up this tab. Okay, so here's the, let me just hide some of this stuff.
The professional deck screener.
Yeah. So here, we'll zoom in a little bit so we can see more. So basically, like, whenever, so the blue line is the DAI price, and the orange line, can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So blue line is DAI price, orange line is USDC price. And there's a function, or there's a smart contract called the peg stability module. And so this is separate from like minting DAI with ETH. Apparently, and this is something where there's kind of some, you know, all the kind of different theories around what actually happened. Some people are saying that like wrapped ETH to DAI thing was turned off due to a large payment made by somebody through Tornado Cash to a MakerDAO holder. Like, there's kind of a string of transactions that some people are suggesting is the reason why it shut off. But another reason that it could have shut off could be that it was just fully tapped out at, like, you know, whatever the contract that governs the minting of the DAI with the ETH. I kind of stopped looking at one. I got kind of sick of just, like, you know, it felt kind of silly to like be looking this deeply into some of this stuff. But suddenly, like, you know, that ETH to DAI system shut off at some point, where you could mint free DAI with ETH. But the thing that didn't shut off or didn't get fully tapped out is something that it's called the peg stability module, which is a contract that allows you to mint, like, basically convert, not through an exchange, but through this contract, 1-to-1 DAI versus USDC. And so, so with the, like, whenever there's a price deviation between orange and blue, where orange is USDC, blue is DAI, you could make free money by just, you know, like, say this is DAI, this is USDC. You could buy DAI, run the function on the peg stability module contract called buy gem. I don't know why it's called buy gem, but it's called buy gem. Buy gem converts your DAI 1-to-1 into USDC, and then you could sell the USDC, buy the DAI. But what's crazy is that, like, during this time, no one was really aware of it, and maybe the price was so low that just, like, you know, no one kind of put that together. I put it together here, like, so. Let's kind of zoom out. Let's find that day. Literally, it's so funny because only when I started plotting, because I really started looking at all this stuff, like, right here.
Mm-hmm.
And so during all this time, there's actually a huge spread that someone could have gone and closed, that where you could convert DAI and USDC. Like, you literally could have been printing free money for weeks on. I mean, of course it would have closed if someone was actually closing the spread. This would have closed. But the thing, like, here, because, like, just, you know, DAI was just pumping so hard and USDC wasn't pumping so hard during this time where DAI was worth more than USDC. Like, I was like all this day, I was just, like, kind of researching, like, how to, like, what was going on. And then I figured out that there were contracts that were able to mint DAI, and then I just Googled, like, or I just went to the DAI contract on Etherscan, and I filtered, like, transactions from the 0 address of DAI, because that would suggest it's being minted. And I filtered out and found a handful of contracts that can mint DAI, and one of them was 1-to-1 with USDC deposits. And so I literally just pulled this chart up, and I was like, okay, well, the price of USDC in orange is lower than DAI. If I was to buy USDC, convert it 1-to-1 into DAI, and then sell the DAI, I could just make free money. And so that's what I just spent all night doing this day, was literally just, like, I built an app on Anvil that let me interact with that contract. No one was used. There were 2 other addresses other than me until I posted about it. Then more people have been using that. But there were 2 other addresses that actually figured out how to use it. And a regular user wouldn't have known how to use it, because for some reason, the way that the block explorer indexed everything, it didn't detect that this address that was minting DAI was a contract, and it didn't have the source code like Etherscan does. You couldn't go on there and just like interact with the contract. And so like there's kind of like a couple hour period where, you know, no one really knew about it. DAI was pumping relative to USDC, and I was just kind of literally just like buy, sell, buy, sell. You know, buy, I would go buy, and I'd run the function on my app, and then sell, buy, run the function, sell. And I was just doing, you know, because like these markets I mean, now the liquidity's grown, but at the time the liquidity was very low, that you had to kind of factor that into the spread. That could kind of zap it out. So, you know, really what it was is I turned about like only like $100 of PLS into like $700 of PLS pretty much. But, you know, so just like squeezing that spread. And so the like 7x the money that I was using just on like my public dipcatcher.eth like throwaway, you know, test wallet pretty much. I was just, you know, kind of doing that. And so and then I posted a whole thread about like, you know, just the various ways to mint DAI, and how I did it to close the spread. And my conclusion from that was that like if DAI was to hit $1, that means that it also has to drag up USDC, USDT, and Pax USD, because they have these contracts that allow you to convert directly between them. So like if this was to be going up relative to another one, there's an arbitrage opportunity immediately for like free instant money that you could close. And so like that was like that was basically my only take on the whole thing, was that like, you know, like it's not a scam. There's no like insider scamming going on. It's just like how DAI is intended to work on Ethereum. Like if it has to, you know, keep if it's going to reach some high price, it has to drag it up with it. And so, and since I posted that, you know, people figured out that like if they were to be bidding one up against the other, that there was something like an arbitrage opportunity would come about. And so now the pDAI and USDC price have literally been in lockstep, like no arbitrage opportunity anywhere. And so like the people that are really into pDAI got kind of upset with me about that I suggested that a fact, you know, because like you know, the whole premise is like kind of the suspension of disbelief, which like I totally get, and like there's really no shame in that. Like there's really no like, these are zero sum financial markets. Lying and spreading misinformation is totally part of the game. Like it's like a welcome part of the game. Like it, you know, so like there's really nothing wrong with, you know, kind of that suspension of disbelief, and like, you know, but the people that were, you know, really into this, they were really upset with me for like suggesting a fact that if it was to go up a lot, it would have to drag these other assets with it. So like whatever amount of buy pressure you're thinking about that it would take to get to $1, multiply that by 3 for USDC, USDT, and Pax. So that was like my takeaway from pDAI. But during that whole saga, there was this mysterious smart contract that was like acquiring a bunch of DAI, and it was part of why there was this huge spread. There was like a smart contract, and then like someone who kind of operates the smart contract, and someone who like operates the liquidity around that smart contract called Atropa. And during that time, they were like one of the big buyers of DAI, and then they were like moving it into different liquidity pools. And now there's like a whole network of liquidity pools routed with like pDAI and Atropa and all these other coins, and like it's like this whole vast web, which is kind of crazy. And so because I was thankful for that, whoever was running that Atropa thing, and because the Atropa deployer is a big bag, like they have a big bag of all of the Maximus assets. Like they're going to be one of our largest airdrop recipients for Pool Party. They participated in literally just about everything. I was like, oh, this person's awesome. Like this must be good. So then I just bought some Atropa, and so that was around here. What was that? August 23rd. So yeah, I bought this little dip right here. Oh wait, no. I bought this one. Early August 23rd. Yeah, so I bought during this dip.
You caught the dip?
Yeah, I literally sniped the dip. Just with like the like half the proceeds. So I split half the proceeds of that arbitrage spread, put half of it into Atropa, because I was like, thank you for opening up that spread. Thank you for being part of Maximus DAO. And like, there was just this shroud of mystery around it. And, and when I looked at the liquidity pool, most of the tokens were locked up. And so I was like, okay, well, who cares? This was free money. I was really just testing if this worked. Like, I don't really care. But, so I bought that, and then it went up like 39x. And so like, so I was kind of intrigued by the whole Atropa thing. And then like on this day, literally at the top, because the Atropa contract is not verified, I just wanted to like look into the code. And, because I was just like trying to figure out, because the question I was trying to answer was like, because the supply, if you look at the block explorer, the supply is like here. If you look at the supply, it's 1.111111111, and the contract is not verified. So you just look at, there's nothing here. When you look at the code, it's just something that robots can read. And so I was trying to figure out what it was all about. First, what I did was I looked into the contract deployer, because one of the theories that people were having was that this is like that Richard Hart is involved in this Atropa thing. So like I just looked into their contract history on Ethereum and did a whole analysis on just like kind of their behavior, their performance to date. I found kind of a web of addresses that all transfer money between each other. So presumably one person or a group of people. Found that they like not particularly good traders. Like Nansen.ai, which is a tool I use for analysis. They like label wallets based on their behavior. They labeled this wallet as cold feet, meaning they'll make a trade and then quickly like undo the trade, like as if they like got cold feet about it. So kind of weird trading behavior. Negative, like their realized performance was like negative. They like had a bunch of hex early on, sold it before the pump, bought much higher, sold at a loss, like that type of thing.
Definitely not Richard.
Yeah, well, you never know, or it could be someone he knows, but I couldn't. There was no immediate thing that you could factually state was like, like any connection. There's no connection there. There was just someone who was trading, and they're active in they're big holders of Axion, and also big holders of Ample. And that was another thing I liked about this person. I'm like, oh, like I like Ample, you like Ample, like, so that's why I bought Atropa in the first place. I'm like, okay, like this guy like checks my boxes, like so the so I just did some analysis on their behavior, and then my next goal was to figure out what to do with like how to read the contract, because like here's the byte, this is like what is all that you see. And so what I did was I literally just copied the deployed bytecode, and then I searched decompiler, searched this tool that lets you decompile bytecode. I just pasted the bytecode in here. I clicked to decompile, and boom, here we go. Here's the code.
Wow. That reminds me of like I don't know if you've ever heard of IDA Pro.
Yeah.
It like decompiles C and C++ code and stuff. That's what this looks like. It looks like a decompiled
it's
version.
literally the same premise. Nice. And so like instantly, like I see things like function name, function approve, function total supply. So what I was mainly looking for were like the public functions, because I was trying to figure out like what could the person who's operating this do. Because functions that are private, that's like the inner workings. But the functions that are public, I was just looking at the public functions. So I literally went Control F, public. I was like, okay, transfer from, just like the normal payable function. Mint function, public, payable. Require owners, message sender, owner, caller is not the owner. So I'm just looking through all these public functions: burn, balance of, renounce ownership, burn from, owner, symbol, decrease allowance, transfer ownership. So all these functions that are straight out of just the standard like Open Zeppelin ERC20 library. Because what I was really looking at, because there are all these theories that Atropa there was some like crazy technology around it, and it was gonna like through Hart's law like make pDAI go to $1 and bring everything up with it, and this was like the plan to like all this stuff. And so I wanted to understand what was going on in the
Hart's
contract.
law, but with Bluetooth.
Yeah,
crazy tech.
And so so I'm reading this. I was like, there's because like something, because I look at these decompilers a lot, because like sometimes there's contracts that you want to read but you like can't figure it out. These decompiler tools, like if the bytecode matches bytecode that they already have like in their database of like common functions, it shows up with like readable function names. But if it doesn't, it looks like these ones that are like function is OX162F. Like it just looks like this because like, you know, it's not like, you know, it's just gobbledygook because it's not something that the decompiler like, you know, so like while the machine code is like accurate, it's not like in the readable form that, you know, you'd recognize. And so like what my conclusion from that was that the Atropa contract was literally just a contract made using the standard, like you go to Open Zeppelin wizard, like they probably did this and launched the token. They probably were like Atropa pre-mint 111111111. They made it mintable, and that's it. And then they literally clicked open in remix, and they probably just clicked
remix.
Yeah. So like that. So like that. That's what I found there. But so then when I knew that this was just a standard ERC20, then I knew that I could go and that I could, like using the standard ERC20 ABI, that I could read the functions and just interact with the whole thing. So I built like a front end for the Atropa contract just to prove that, you know, to confirm that what I decompiled was accurate with what I thought the contract was. And so, you know, the first thing I checked was I ran the owner function. So I read who the owner was, saw that the owner still was the deployer, and then the like that function in here that was the mint function that is in here, the owner was the only address that could run it. And so I wanted to see if it, like the way I confirmed that like what I was reading from was accurate, I tried to run the mint function myself, and I tried to mint myself free tokens. And then what I was looking for was, I was trying to see if I was looking for the error ownable, caller is not the owner. So I just ran the mint function myself, tried to mint myself free tokens, and it threw this error that I was expecting. And so that let me know that this function is still working and that the owner could mint as many coins as they want. Not to say they would or want to, but you know, at the time, Atropa was at like reaching an all-time high. it was way up here when I was discussing this. And so I like analyzed it, figured it out. And like, I think I tweeted about it when the price was like 0.01. And I was transparently selling every single major pump on my Atropa. I was scaling, I was like DCAing out. So my average sell order in Atropa is probably somewhere like up here, maybe 0.07.
You got are you showing the screen?
Oh, so like, I was kind of selling into these big pumps like there. And I was live tweeting like, and it was from a wallet that I made public. And it was literally like only like $2,000. So it's like not even really much. Right. And so like, not like moving the charts by any means. But so I had published that the Atropa contract, new tokens could be minted by the contract owner. And, that's part of the, it's part of the risk for everyone to bake in. And so people were like all up in arms saying that I was like killing Atropa and like, dumping the price because I wanted to buy lower. And I was like, no, I literally said I'm actively selling. I bought lower than I think it'll go back down to. Like all these people that bought the top are mad at me about Atropa saying I'm coping. And I'm like, I'm literally up 36x. Like, how am I coping? So it was kind of a whole like funny little song and dance. And then, so that's kind of been the saga around Atropa and DAI from my experience. It's really, me just trying to dig into the stuff, be open-minded, and then like accurately describe all the risks and all the mechanics of these systems. So
how dare you?
Been a funny experience.
How dare you? So just to recap for people joining, because I know a lot of people joined in the last 20 minutes or so, but I think you described, correct me if I'm wrong, three things. So one was with pDAI, was on PulseChain. You could, until someone who sent apparently from the Tornado Cash to turn off minting, you used to be able to mint pDAI more through it, but it was turned off from after we don't know about, right?
Yeah, I'm not like, I haven't seen definitive like stuff on chain for like what actually turned it off and why, or if or if it was just like no longer, like if say that function can only be run within some range, maybe by now like the DAI is all tapped out, or the the ETH that you could deposit, which is Pulse, is at some capacity, because the DAI supply is something like 15 times higher on PulseChain than Ethereum. So like I don't know if there's some mechanism that prevents like but somehow like the ETH to DAI route has turned off.
And the second one was you found the contracts that were to be used, or you could use to, if you're trying to close the spread between USDC, PAX, and USDT, those contracts that you could use to, was it you could mint more DAI to close the spread?
Yeah, you could like deposit USDC and mint DAI, or burn DAI and redeem USDC.
Okay. So that was another piece of it. And then third was Atropa, which was something that was like a project that there's a token, but also had like liquidity pools and stuff that was around.
They seem to be very active in creating all different types of liquidity pools that and there's also like a network of, and I'm not exactly sure who or what, but because there's so many pools, and because the PulseChain ecosystem around like arbitrage and like MEV, it's not very advanced, so like there's, a fair amount of, what we lack is kind of like the flash loan concept to a large scale. But, there's a lot of these bots that are just like, because there's so many different pools, and also because the routers, there's basically like, the PulseX router, which I actually wasn't using in all this. I was using pDAI. It's like a new DEX aggregator.
I keep hearing about it. Access talked about the other day.
Yeah. Like, because I was trying to trade on it with PulseX, but it just wouldn't load the prices. And by the time I'd run my transaction, the price would be different and my transaction would fail. So I had a couple like transactions that like it just wasn't working on PulseX for me to run the spread. And then I just like went over to pDAI and ran it in instant, like just like printing money. So I was using pDAI for that. But because of, like the DEX aggregator ecosystem is kind of small, there's not like, a whole, like on Ethereum, there's a bunch of different types of DEX aggregators and a bunch of different things like cow swap and 1inch and all these things that like the name of the game is closing spreads and, matching buys and sells across different liquidity pools and all that stuff. So on PulseChain, it's just not very advanced yet. And so there's these bots that just kind of wait around and just like, they close those spreads. And so, so I think people were associating that with some type of like behind the scenes working on Atropa. But it, at least from the stuff I looked at, because it's like they would say that things are going on, but then like you'd ask for the link on the Block Explorer and like they wouldn't share it, or like they'd share a link that like didn't show what they were saying, or at least like wasn't like definitive. And so it's kind of hard to get to the bottom of it. The transactions that I did see, they just looked like general purpose arbitrage bots that are like, they have something that scans the price, like the ratios amongst different pools. And if they have, if there's like an opportunity that fits within their, gas fee and their profit ratio that their bot has, it'll just like make a trade, across a bunch of different pools. And so, and because there were so many of these pools and there was so much trading going on outside of them, anytime there's a bunch of trading on one pool but not the other, there's like arbitrage opportunities. So they're kind of, people were trying to figure out, what was actually making it happen. The stuff I looked at appeared to just be like normal arbitrage spreads. And people just, just trying to make money from the whole thing. So, but I mean, really, I stopped looking at it. Like basically when I tweeted that kind of the breakdown of the Atropa thing, I just kind of stopped looking at it. Cause like, it's like, it's like, there's nothing like wrong with the whole thing. Like, there's really nothing wrong with pDAI. There's nothing wrong with Atropa. There's like the risks there that, that I kind of highlighted, but it's not like those are, I mean, the owner minting tokens, that could be like catastrophic for the price. Cause like they can.
That is good to know. I mean, I think if nothing else, people should be happy that it's especially if you just can't see the source code there. I mean, I know it wasn't hard to take it and then put it in and buy compile it. Most people don't know how to do that. And not that they're going to look at the code anyways, but that's a critical part of, maybe if they were going to invest in something like that, is to know if there's just a mint function that can be called by the owner. That's something, people should know. So I'm glad if nothing else, when your research takes you down that road, that a lot of people, if I was buying it, I would want to know that. But there's a point from Shaman here to talk about the maker. So yeah, a couple people in chat are like, way more to the stories, something like that. And then somebody says, talk.
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff that like right now, this first time that I've heard of this, because like I'm not really plugged in, and I went in the pDAI thing, and people were just like yelling at me, and so I was just like, okay, I don't even want to be in this room. So I'm not like plugged into, like I've been more focused truly on friend tech. I've been performing like since then. I kind of was like, okay, like I'm gonna
baby doll, fluffy cakes. Are you into friend tech too? Their friends only like friend tech.
Well, yeah. So like, I guess that's what I've been looking at since then. So, which I'm shocked at the performance on friend tech. So but it's like there, so I see people in chat saying, yeah. So like there are certainly things that I'm either behind on or don't know, but like,
net function stable 6 days ago. That'd be nice to have a reference on that, but that's what Carl says.
Well, yeah. So
how can it be disabled, by the way, if it's in the contract, unless there's something you need to call a function to disable it? What did you see any disabling function, or was it? I mean, you can't disable it unless there's a function to do that, right?
Carl, can you submit the Block Explorer transaction hash?
Oh, also Carl said there's no mint function, but I thought you just showed the mint function DC. Were you showing us weird code? What are you talking about, man?
the one that I was minting through is the USDC to DAI one, which I don't think is separate from the one that I think everyone is thinking about, which is the ETH one.
Oh, I thought he was talking about the one in the Atropa contract, but maybe I don't know at this point. But you just showed there is a mint function that's only callable by the owner, right?
Wait, is he talking about in Atropa? No, okay, I see. He's talking about DAI.
Oh, okay, my bad. Please describe which one you're talking about in the chat, because we talked about a few different coins right now.
Carl, can you please share the link to the transaction hash? Like I believe you that somehow, but I would like to see.
Yes, Carl, please share the reference if you'd like to. I mean, you can't post the link. Add us on Twitter at RHMaximus at Tentonomini on Twitter if you can't paste it in the chat. But yeah, if you have a reference for that, that'd be great. Imagine walking in a room and people are just screaming at you immediately. Like, would you just stay there or would you walk out? When you said that about the chat, I was just thinking, like, that never happens in real life. That's so weird that it happens on the internet so much.
Yeah. See, which I like kind of respect. Like, they're really dedicated like that. That's like the most bullshit about it is like, kind of that like feverish. And I mean, really from the people that performed well, like, I mean, although like if you look at the where is it? DAI stablecoin. Like, the people that are up, like, that's awesome performance. That's like, PulseChain leading performance. So like, you got to respect the pump, and I absolutely respect the pump. And, but I mean, if you just look at the volume, it's like, price was very, very low when volume was very, very low, like literally almost no, like, okay, so like just on this random day here, 1,483. So the average was 4.959K DAI. So that's how many units were being traded. The price was 0.000. So 04s and a 3225. 0.1234325 times how many? Like 4,000 it said. Like on that day, there was 13 cents of trading volume. So like very few people actually like captured any value here. Like most of it, like the buying happened like around these days when like the price, when all that stuff was going on. And also a lot of the volume is arbitrage trading. So like that, you kind of factor that in. So like, on these days, it was a larger amount. So like, still like not very much volume, meaning like not many people really bought it very low. Most of the people that bought it, if you look at the volume here, most of the actual buyers are like up here. So, and that's what this tool shows, is like this thing called, this shows where like, it's called point of control. Someone tweeted about this today, gave a really good explanation. I was using this to try to characterize like at what price are most users in profit. So like this here shows like where most of the volume took place, this red line. And so like as of the time when everyone started caring about this, which was on say August 8th, of course there are people that were caring about it before then, but like not very many. Like throughout all this time, most of the buying happened at about 0.001. And so like the most of the people, I mean, that's just like the common with everything. Like at the hex price, like if you looked at the hex, most of the buying was at the peak of the bull market. That's like what makes it a bull market. And so it kind of, makes sense there. So I think it's, people, people definitely get defensive around like, their money. So I get why people would be kind of upset that here I'm suggesting that Atropa can mint new tokens, and that that DAI has to also pull up USDC and Pax USD with it. Like, and like,
don't sound too crazy to me.
Kind of be like all upset. for stating those things.
I'm interested. I mean, the reason I want to talk about it was like I'm just curious about DAI on PulseChain and how this could even, the minting stuff could even happen, and just and all that. I mean, I have no interest in the casino games at all. I'm just curious, like, wow, that is, when you fork this on a blockchain and something has the assumption or uses oracles or otherwise on a new blockchain, these funny things can happen with the contract calls. So that's fascinating to me. What was I going to ask?
I was reading the chat. It's kind of funny.
The chat's been fun tonight. Thanks, chat. Got a lot of new people here that are very passionate about pDAI, Atropa, and commenting on your TA a little bit as well, and then stablecoins. A lot of people be renewed interest in stablecoins, which has been fascinating too lately. A lot of people have been talking about that. I was going to ask you something. I forgot what it was before we wrap up. Yeah, I'll just go with that. Where do you think it goes from here? What is next? What do you? I mean, it's been a crazy past couple of weeks as we've seen on the chart and stuff too. But what is next for this saga? How does it end? How does it end?
I mean, I don't think it ever ends. Like, these things don't end. Like, I guess it ends if like 100% of everyone just sells, or if like, it's like from the copy coins, like the DAI supply on Ethereum, it's about like 15 times smaller than the DAI supply on PulseChain. So like Richard owned, no, not 15. It has to be like 6.8, because from that sacrifice war chest, spreadsheet that shows that, and if you just look at the top holders of DAI on Ethereum, that RH owns 15% of the supply that was copied over at the fork. But now, because of all the new minting, the DAI supply is inflated by about 6.85 times, and so he now owns like 2% of the DAI supply on Ethereum, or on PulseChain. But then all those other users that hold the other amount, they're of course their amount scaled down because someone was minting a bunch of the DAI and then selling it. So that's kind of been distributed. So now, they've been diluted. But, so it's like, if the number of new buyers that come in to buy pDAI at very high prices relative to now, and if the number of people who are buying now and the people that just had their free copies that they hadn't even heard of PulseChain, like the billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars of DAI, don't now be like, oh, free money, like, and then extract it, kind of how some other copies have, the holders, as soon as it's worth extracting, they extracted it.
pDAI farm's coming. pDAI farm's incoming.
Well, so, I mean, maybe you never know, but if there's enough buyers to support that, it absolutely can, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with it. They're like, truly, I think a lot of people like really are, like, we're kind of salty about it, which I get. Like, I get the people that have been salty. I don't really relate, because like, you have to respect the pump, but a lot of people don't respect the pump, and they like, their thing isn't pumping, or their thing is aggressively dumping, and the thing that maybe they like promoted is aggressively dumping, or like the thing, like they're down bad, and they're upset because like this, silly thing, that they don't own is going up. So it's kind of a common case of like, my coin good, your coin bad syndrome. And so I think that's why that's probably why there's kind of the defensiveness around it, because most people are just like calling them stupid, which I don't think these people are stupid. They're outperformed. Like, the people that are capturing the gains, which isn't the majority. Like, that volume profile thing shows there that the majority of users are not capturing the gain, but like the people that are capturing the gain, they, at least to now, it can always continue to go up, like that's always the caveat before people jump down my throat. Like, people who bought at that high, it can turn into a new high. Like, it of course can. But, so like the people that are capturing the gain, they're up big. And so, it's like you have to respect that.
Do you think that any of those gains will go into new hex stakes for maximum T-shares acquisition?
I think it's a different audience. I think that the cohort of people that are drawn to this, I don't necessarily think that it's like a hex audience. Maybe they like, and if anything, because like what the underlying force kind of in all of this, like this one has its own kind of mystery and like narrative around it, but just in general with like what I think we're seeing is that like because everyone, the majority of the ecosystem got in around the sacrifices, around hex all-time highs, something like at these prices, like something like only like 20% of people in the ecosystem are actually in profit. Like 80% of all participants are sitting on losses. And so like people are down and they want to make it all back in one trade. And so they're willing to take higher and higher risk. And I think a lot of people are like, kind of like, they're updating their worldview and like, maybe like the kind of the narratives that they were really latched onto, say a year ago, 2 years ago. I don't think that they're so latched onto it, maybe just because like in that time they hadn't necessarily played out. So I think the risk appetite is actually very, very high right now. It's like risk appetite high, but dry powder is very low. So there's kind of this like kind of shuffling of like where people are basically like rolling their funds that they had already that are down into another thing where there's not much for sale, like relatively low liquidity, and sending the price up. And so I think that it's like a sign of just like a desire for high performance when a lot of people, they've been sitting on 2 years of straight losses. And so like I think that's one of the underlying things that's like increasing people's risk appetite. And I honestly don't think that gains from this will go into hex.
I don't think I mean, of course, like I said, I try to stay away from the casino and I don't trade these. I'm not a good trader. I don't want to be a good trader and I try to stay away from it. But I applaud those who are, man. I mean, you guys are killing it. So keep doing what you're doing. But I think 99% of us are not good traders, myself included. So I try not to. However, I don't think I've ever made more hex stakes in the last few weeks than I've ever made before. Crazy enough to say. Yeah, I guess it's one of those things, man. It's when you talk about people sitting on dry powder or not having a lot of dry powder, but want to play some games. I hope it brings people in the ecosystem, and eventually, if and when we get green candles, it'll look a little bit different as far as the games people are playing. The games people are playing right now. I hope you all win. I hope you all do well. But I'm just going to keep following Dipcatcher because his Twitter feed's entertaining as hell. So again, when you said I was talking to Greenman, like I was like, oh, you kept tweeting about different stuff. I'd read your long threads. Like, oh, that's interesting. pDAI this, Atropa that. Then we go like, I have acquired the Atropa source code. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I need to look more into this. What is going on? That statement was just very compelling, very interesting. And then so you acquired it. Basically, the story behind that you decompiled it. Was that the deal? I was like, you got it from someone. I was like, literally, my thought was, so someone like DM'd him and like sent him like leaked source code or something. Like that was like my first thought. But no, you just decompiled it and you acquired the source code. There you go. It's true.
Yeah. I mean, everyone had it, but I read it.
That's the thing. You were early. You were early to the decompilation. Yes, I like it, man. Your instinct and your knack for doing these things is truly a blessing and truly fun to see, man. And I really appreciate you being around. This is great.
Thank you. Yeah, never a dull day.
That's all we got for you, everyone. You can catch your dip at Tanto Nomini, just the way it sounds. And if you'd like to check me out on Twitter as well, at RHMax, once I get a YouTube channel. You're watching it right now. But that's all we got for you tonight. We hopefully fulfilled your cup for the pDAI story as much as possible. And I'm sure check out Dipcatcher's Twitter for further updates if he comes across anything interesting. I'm sure it'll be on there, man. But appreciate you doing these rabbit holes. They're super entertaining, especially in these troubled times of down, and keep going down until maybe one day we go up again. You never know.
This is how we know what we're made of.
That's facts. As Trip the Truth would say, facts. That's the truth. All right, everyone. Have a good night. And Scivive and 5555. We are out.